So we're recording on YouTube. Don't talk about your mom.
Odds are okay.
Welcome everybody to the very, very low populated Unix users group. And this evening we're going to have two talks. We're going to have Lee here talking about his new OpenSUSE setup and installation. And then later, after he's done, I'm going to do a talk about VPNs. Without any further ado, Lee Lambert.
All right. You wanted the calendar up, I believe?
Yeah, that's either before, after, during, etc.
Okay.
So next,
You take that as fold up there, or you take it down? Scroll down to underneath it. You guys can take it down.
Either that or it's on the right-hand side of the page. Sometimes netbooks can be a little interesting as far as page formatting. Anyway, Barry called me about 5 o'clock this evening and said, Dan's kind of under the weather. He doesn't want to come and share any bugs. So he asked me what I had, if I had anything in mind. I said, well, I'll show you Suse 13.2. I just did a fresh install on this netbook about a month ago and actually just got the Wi-Fi configured today because it's been sitting on the shelf. I don't really use it unless I'm going to meetings like this, and I got my big laptop too, so it's not a priority matter. I've been using Suse for about 5 years now. I think I've explained before, but let me review a little bit. There's a couple reasons I like it. One, it comes from the EU, and I respect their ROHS environmental standards a lot more than I do anything here in the US. B, it has this interesting thing called YAST, yet another setup tool that's saved me tons of time in terms of configuring. You know, for example, once I figure out how to use it, it took me about 45 seconds to mount a nice SCSI LUN. Put in the credentials, browse it, click on the box, and map it to a mount point. Okay, you can do it in YAST. It's a great. It's not a true GUI. In fact, I use it mostly. Grab the window over here. I use it mostly from a command prompt. For those of you that have to suffer with Windows as a operating desktop, I will admit there have been issues over the years. Every time I have to use a Windows machine, it drives me fruit because the ANSI graphics don't work on the YAST screen. It used to be if you set PuTTY to UTF-8, it would work, but that really stopped working for me too. So I don't know what the fix is nowadays. Anybody else use end cursor interfaces at PuTTY? Anybody? You know what I mean? These lines come up with unknown characters. So you got big ASCII characters bordering the screen instead of nice lines like this in the end cursors interface. Yeah. But anyway, this is YAST. I mean, it's not. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but suffice to say that's the second reason I like Suse. And the third reason is since it's based in Europe, they're about as far as you can get from the DRM gold mines out in California. All right. As far as look and feel, everything's pretty much the same as Suse 13.1 and 12.2 and 12.1 and 12.0. Suse 12 about 4.5, 5 years ago was the first one they had done with a clean desktop design. You switched to GNOME 3. I kind of like it because it's clean. You know, normally you work with a clean desktop. I'll show you some options here in a minute. All you have is a status bar on top. You've got your activities here, which is basically how to go to the launch page. Favorites on the left. Your active desktops on the right in an icon form. And then the middle part for programs. You got the standard icon down here to show all programs, but when you launch to that screen, all you have to do is type. Tweak, if I can spell it right, Tweak tool is your friend in the GNOME world. This is how you customize the UI for your use. First change you're going to make, assuming you want, let's see, I guess it's icons on desktop now. You know, once you start putting the icons on the desktop, then you get your standard right-click options, which is what I use all the time. That's how I get to the terminal prompt. Parents, you change the theme. I really don't play with that very much. Desktop icons, extensions. A couple extensions I use all the time. Alternate tab and hibernate status.
What does hibernate status do?
Okay, let me do the top one first. Alternate tab with it off. When you tab through, you know, sometimes you'll jump off the current workspace. Alternate tab limits your tab options to the current workspace. So if you got 6 or 8 workspaces, you're only all tabbing between the workspace instead of between different Firefox windows on 8 different workspaces. Now, hibernate status button, believe it or not, the standard status button here don't come with a hibernate. So that's how you put a hibernate command on the dropdown. Otherwise, you don't have it. Otherwise, you have to drop in the shell and say, I think it's user local sbin PM hibernate or something like that. Is anybody not familiar with GNOME extensions? Oh, really?
I don't know what they are.
Okay. Get back to the tab here. I think I did that right. Yep. GNOME extensions are widgets you can add to the desktop environment. There's thousands of them. Everything from themes to application menus. Notice that alternate tab, the one I was just talking about, is number 3 up here on a popularity list. In fact, if you select that one, it installs directly from the web page. There's hook code that runs in Firefox that installs it in your GNOME environment. Obviously, you have a confirmation window pops up that you want to do this, and then you can say yes or no. But I have noticed some weird things, by the way. This is, I think it's 34, if I remember correctly. 34.05. With Firefox 34, you can no longer connect to an SSL key shorter than 2048 bits. It won't do it. It says cannot connect. So, you know, I've got servers in the shop, 2 or 3 of them running Webmin. I've had on there for 15 years. I'm not going to update the keys. It's not worth it. But with Firefox, you can't talk to them anymore. Anybody ever seen a problem like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you get around it?
You have secondary or tertiary browser, don't you?
Yep. It's not on here, but I use Midori. It's an older browser. It works just fine. So whenever I want to talk to those servers, I just pop up another browser and use it. All right. Now, another thing I can point out. Get back to your previous page. One of the things I like about the Suse world, Not that there aren't other resources out there, but Suse seems to be better organized. You go to forum.suse.org, and I have never not been able to find an answer to my question or somebody that was willing to help. In this case, I had to add the drivers for my Broadcom this afternoon. I found this post, let's see, when was it? Not even sure when the date was. Yeah, 28 November, so it was back in November. But there it is, it's 2 steps. Most of the non-mainstream open source software in Suse lives in separate repositories, the primary which is called Pacman. And here's how you install Pacman as a repository. Gas software repositories, add community repositories, and then you put a check mark next to Pacman. Link their repository, does a refresh, and then all you have to do is install this kernel edition, since it's the desktop edition, for the Broadcom WL drivers. Took a grand total of about a minute, reboot the machine, Wi-Fi came up. You know, plain and simple. You know, the Suse world is different than what you get with Red Hat and some other distros. There's 2 flavors of Suse. Open Suse is like, I guess, Fedora, and it's always not state of the art, but it's the release version is one or maybe 1.5 behind the development tree, so it's always fairly current. There's a major release at least once a year, sometimes as soon as 8 months. Just depends on what the status of the kernel is. 13.1 came out last winter. 13.2 came out here last month. And like I say, this is the first machine I've actually updated. It's actually fairly simple on the update process. Again, YAS is your friend. You go into software here. Software repositories, and basically uncheck your previous version and then add in a set of repositories for a new version, and then use zipper distribution update. Zipper DUP. Netbooks aren't known for their performance. It should come up here in a minute. There we go. So here's the Pacman I added today. The rest of these are standard 13.2. So basically you would disable all of these and then add in 13.3 when it comes along, and then do the distribution update. And I've done 3 or 4 machines over the last few years, and it seems to work fairly well. The only thing that's going to fall out are things like the Broadcom drivers, because they're not part of the standard tree. You have to go back and manually add a Pacman repository or maybe another repository, and pull those packages in from there. Any questions?
And it looks like you can key them. I see.
Looks like what?
Keys on the bottom.
I can't hear you, Val.
It looks like you can key them. I saw GPG keys.
Oh yeah. You've actually got pretty good control over the whole environment. Do you guys not see this on your machines? Do you not use it?
I'm not using it yet. I'm only just painting.
Okay.
They're still installing and so forth, so we're only at the point of.
Okay.
Users so they can get into it.
Yeah, like I say, YAS is one of the 3 or 4 main reasons I picked Suse in the first place. Other than I started teaching classes back 12, 14 years ago when John took a class down there at Premier. and I kind of used to it, so I started on the open Suse track. But YAST has always been a big resource for me. If you want to change any system configuration, I work for 3 or 4 different distros. Debian's my main #2 because I use it on all my Raspberry Pi work. But its configuration files are a little bit different than CentOS, a little bit different than Fedora, and a little bit different than SUSE. The path names are a little bit different enough that you just can't go to the right place all the time. So YAST has always been good for me. For example, hardware, network settings is always a big one. Trying to set up a bridge or set up secondary IPs and stuff like that. It's all right here in the GUI. Obviously, it's going to run a little bit faster if you have some decent hardware to play with. When I'm on my workstation in the office, this is pretty much instantaneous. In this case, the network manager is running, so it'll tell you shouldn't be doing anything in here. Normally, you don't have to if network manager handles it, but on a server, network manager is turned off, obviously, and I do everything in YAST. Overview is the starting point. It tells you what devices you have in the system. Let's see. I don't know why it's blinking out like that. It looks like in 13.2 they may even be blocking you from doing it. But you can see them up here. The top one, 802.11, which is obviously handled by the network manager in this case. Okay, I guess the Atheros is the built-in products. I'm not using a wire. There's nothing I can manage there. But normally I can take you to one of our production machines downtown. In fact, I got a couple minutes. Maybe I'll do that. Hello. And let's see, where am I? This is, I think this is like 12.2 on the machine downtown. So we're like on the Ethernet card here. Okay. There we go. It's easy just to stack up all your aliases. And believe me, if you put the right name down here, 6 months from now, and I'm trying to figure out which virtual host belongs on which IP, I can just go back to the configuration here and just lay it out right in front of you. Then obviously down here we have some name-based virtual hosts. And let's 160's up here. That's an old one that was defined a long time ago. But it's just simple. It's something I like. It's a good way to get a lot of work done fast. Okay. Oh, by the way, everybody knows what Tmux is, right? It's the best thing since sliced bread when it comes to sysadmin work. I've got 4 different Windows open, each one of those can have a pane configuration, like here's a split. I can change the split to something else. You can do, and it's just a grown-up version of screen. All right. Any questions? Everybody's going to go download OpenSUSE and give it a try, right?
Teamworks. Everybody's going to download Teamworks.
A TMUX can be a lot more useful, I'll tell you that. When was it? Last time I updated my development Pi about 3 months ago, I found that they finally had a package out for it. And so that's the first thing I installed after the base install. So I can run that with 5 or 6 different Windows configurations. And, one of the things I like that config Wednesday, that changes. When I'm doing testing for Nagios installations, there's 3 things you have to look at the same time. You have to look at the configuration for the check you're testing. You have to look at the definition of that command in Nagios so you get the parameters right. And then you actually have to do it in a third pane to see what's going on. And this is the only way that I figured that I could do it. I set this up a couple of years ago when I first started doing it. And what I got four windows down there. The triple split's the first one because that's where I do testing, and then these are all various work windows and ones I have root for, and I'm doing a hub on it. All right, anybody else? Any questions? Anyone want to come up and play? Don't be bashful. Well, looks like I put them all to sleep for you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, since Gary still isn't here, you gonna do the
Well, if
Oreo
everyone
cream?
would like to take a break and eat some chips and some fruits and muddle around, and I think there's coffee back there. Coffee.
any
I will get set up for my little talk, and you guys can fall completely to sleep.
in the meantime, any questions that might be useful to the group or announcements?
I wanted to share something.
Sure.
Graybar forced me to use an iPhone, which I fought and fought, but then I promptly fell in love with. And then I dropped it in a puddle, completely submerged it. And I thought, I do not want to tell my boss that I dropped my phone after it's only 3-4 months old in a row. And I took it to an iPhone repair place immediately, within 24 hours. And he was able to salvage it. All it needed was a new camera. He said the best thing is not to wait until it dries, which is exactly the opposite of what I would have suspected. He said when it dries, it leaves a bunch of deposits of crud in there, and that's usually what causes the trouble. So if you get it to someone right away that has a special screwdriver to open it up and dry it out with, Q-tips and wipes and such, they're savable. It cost me $50.
It has a little M logo on the back. It's waterproof by default, so it doesn't matter.
Now where's an iPhone repair store? You mean?
I went to STL iPhone Repair on Mexico because I used them before. 2 years ago, I did the same thing. My personal phone is waterproof.
My dentist has a fix for this problem.
What's that?
He said, they look in there with like an otoscope, like they look in your ear to see if that little thing turns pink in there. So what the dentist did, he has an otoscope at home, of course. He took a Q-tip, kind of cut it down after packing it in rice all night to dry it out.
Yeah.
He dipped that in bleach and then went down there and then pulled it out. And when that thing turned white again, took it in, or his daughter did, and they gave her another
What
phone.
happened to it?
This may not be ethical, but hey, you know, but if you're thinking about the money side, I see what's going to do that.
I was more worried about, I just didn't want to tell my boss I was that lame. If I could have just replaced it myself, that would be fine, but you gotta do it through Gray Bar's setup, so we got all the security and software and all
Yeah, that's weird.
I just didn't want to do that.
I don't blame you. Any questions for the group? Any challenges?
How many of you guys are going to come and volunteer to speak next month? Wendell?
I'm working on it now.
Okay.
I'm working on trying to get myself together. I didn't know if I was gonna be making tonight, because of my work situation, I didn't wanna give anybody anywhere.
Actually, while Ed's here, are you going to do your Blender talk?
Oh, impromptu? Oh, next week? Sure.
Well, in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I can do it next week. if you want.
I think he's trying to draft it for tonight. I think he's trying to draft it for tonight.
And apparently Stan has added this to the front page of the SLUG website.
Why didn't it show up?
Oh, it's a JavaScript thing.
Okay.
Apparently this one's for old people and I'm not supposed to go, so.
But not enough gray hair.
Hmm?
Not enough gray hair.
Apparently I'm 30 or 40 years too young. Okay, everybody talk about, did anyone break anything today? What'd you break?
I don't know, Firefox, I got XP running on virtual machines.
Yeah.
Today, all of them had updates on XP.
It's their malicious
That's
software.
what I figured. But Firefox now takes forever to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
More so than a day or two ago. And I did notice they have a thing left that says, if it's running slow, do a repair. Basically takes everything, cleans it out to a fresh install.
Yeah.
Anybody run into that or any other solutions other than removing everything and starting?
Yeah, I'm surprised people still use Firefox, really.
You can go out and, there's a
As
reset
opposed
button
to- as opposed to
that does that, because I get spinning beach ball all the time.
Yeah.
Nothing
And so
works in
they
Chrome.
troubleshoot and
Everything works in
reset,
Chrome.
Everything you do is
And
reported
they
to
import the
NSA.
data back in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that will fix it.
Okay.
But you'll have to Google that. There is a reset button for Firefox somewhere. I
So-
think it's only troubleshooting help.
So there's in your, on Microsoft XP, you say?
Yeah.
It would be local settings. There will be a folder for Mozilla, and there will be some cache directories. What day of the millennium it is, and you just need to give it a kick in the butt and delete them.
Did
you
say
I'm sorry?
run practically?
No, it's more about how cache or cookies can get into a state where the Mozilla Firefox doesn't understand where to start again. This cookie has a touch date that's different than its creation date, and I'm all confused, so I don't want to continue to work. So it's just easier to kill the cache. So for example, if you have a cache of all the cat pictures you've been looking at all day, you can delete them and download them again. So did anybody fix anything today? Did anyone do anything today?
I kind of sleptwalked through the day.
Really? Within 3 questions, we could guess where you work.
Question,
7, the answer's 7.
thank you.
but it's 42.
Guess someone wants me to look at their laptop to remove a virus.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the best?
Is this a Microsoft product?
I believe it is.
Well, I don't like Microsoft. But what you want is all you want is Thundercats Roar. Combo Fix is a wonderful tool to the 35-pound sledgehammer to fix any Microsoft Windows machine. Don't worry about the 5, 10, or 15-pound sledge. Go for the 35-pound sledge. Only get this from bleepingcomputer.com.
They also have a real long thing on there of a whole number of things that you can run to clean up the machine.
Yeah, so bleepingcomputer.com is one of the few websites that hasn't been somehow purchased by an actual malware company. So a lot of the times you will find a very reasonable piece of software, and over this process of a year or two, a malware company will actually buy that anti-malware software or pay off the developers or do something, and then they will make it take off everyone else's malware but theirs. So you always have to keep track of whose hands in whose pocket. So there you go. There, I gave Windows advice. I've been very sick.
I got a Linux.
Oh, let's do a Linux question.
It's kind of a two-part kind of thing. I'm trying to set up a Squid proxy server.
Okay.
All Squid, and I want to do my ACL.
This is for outbound caching? Okay.
And for some reason, when I put in like a website to deny, it's not denying it. And I changed my ports and all this stuff.
Squid would not be configured to, are you talking about an access control?
Yeah.
So Squid is normally, it's designed to cache content so that if you're on dial-up, it keeps longer caches on files.
Right, but if I want to block out a certain site.
That's a different thing. In the Windows world, in the corporate world, they call those proxies, but they're really filters.
When I start paying Guardian through Squid, then it blocks out the site.
Right.
And another part was when I'm in PFSense, I just started using it, but I noticed when I try to set up a rule, some reason certain sites it will block out.
Right.
But when I try to disable the rule, then I'm able to get to those sites. It give me like a code form 3 or something like that. So we can block by this, and I'm like, why is it blocking? So I'm trying to put in to where I can cut down on adware, spyware, this kind of.
Right.
So when I try to put in a sub, the IP address of like even like a certain computer, when I'm on or a different one, it still does like the same thing.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out.
So you're having Squid talk to another program on creating filters, right? So you're having Squid say, hey, is this in my filter list?
Very well, no. Well, the one Squid, but with installed, I have it running separate.
Mhm.
Because, you know, you kind of almost go hand in hand what you do on the command line and all that, you know. GA, you kind of, you know, it's like a nice web format when you speed up. So kind of get a better understanding, trying to figure out where am I running the roadblock of it denying certain sites and allow, because there was this guy on YouTube, he did it to where, like, he put in, did a certain search.
Right.
On Google, it redirected it to a different website.
So you're talking, are you talking about content, pages, or sites? Okay, because there's actually different tool for each.
Okay.
So like if you're on Facebook, for example, there could be some bad content you don't want the user to see. Okay? And that's a content filter. So like deep package inspection, stuff like that.
Sites.
And then you can have page blocking where you're blocking particular pages, and that's just a little bit more content. And then site levels whenever you're blocking an entire site.
Okay. Well, I want to do the site.
Okay. You want to just do the site level? Then just do the and that's still zoomed in, isn't it? A little bit. So Wendell, I would spend some time with this real quick, and you could probably make a very fast and cheap filter, okay? And actually, they just made a change for Dave here. They blocked out the link local because it's not correct on all systems. See, Dave did something successful over the past week. Okay. And actually, Wendell, if you can, I would put the web filtering or something on the potential talks wiki page. If you remember how to do that. Super Gary showed up. We're still in the intermission stage, answering questions and stuff. And somewhere over here, we have Stan's questionnaire that he wants everybody to comment on. That means all you guys go ahead and click a button.
Check the results.
What? You can check all of them?
No, he said, did you check your results?
Oh, the results?
It would be results. Phil, it really doesn't make any difference. The Supreme Court will order the votes to stop being counted. They'll just pick who they want anyway. So.
Well, 3 people voted 75%. 3 people voted for. 1 person said they're not interested in ever attending. That's pretty harsh.
Yeah, that was Stan's.
But we told him he has to leave the group anyway.
So that's a total of 4 people. Okay, so in the super calendar, while we're up here, looks like next.
What the heck? Hold on. Let's just to make Stan happy. Go back to that for a second. Okay. Show of hands. How many people for number 1 out of this group? Okay. How many people for number 2?
Behind you.
Okay. And how many people for number 3? And how many people for number 4? Okay, great. Thank you.
I don't qualify. I'm not old enough.
Oh, there you go.
Okay,
That
so
means Andrew will be putting together a new group for those who are not eligible to attend the senior club. And
we'll meet at the bar. No computers.
Gary will be on town. If you need it to bar.
Hmm?
He'll be on time if you need it.
We'll tell them a different bar.
Just a panel.
So,
So tomorrow is the DevOps meetup, which I usually go to and help run. If any of you guys are DevOpsy. Next Tuesday, we have the Hazelwood Linux user group, which I don't know if Stan's going to be healthy enough or not for, but they'll find some way of squeezing on through.
He was out yesterday.
He was?
Yeah. He was.
Me and Ken Johnson have been sick for a week since we sat beside Stan.
Stan is definitely down tonight. I was on the phone with him, and he is
Oh, I figured he
Sorry.
was okay yesterday.
So next next Wednesday there at the Novell luncheon thing, it looks like they have ZenWorks Suite. And then next Thursday is the big one. It's not this. We need to fix that. Oh.
And now, a live demo of how to do Google Calendar on our calendar. Actually, wasn't this what Stan's tutorial was supposed to
We'll try this at home.
So next Thursday, we are going to do, what did I even call it? Recycle your old hardware by everyone. Old hardware day. Bring an old laptop and let's make it work with Linux. Power cord's not optional.
I like that. That's a fun idea.
Even talking, man. Maybe get a forklift and take something off the computer room floor.
So there you go, live demo. I changed the thingy that popped up.
LBM 360.
You still got one of those too? Great. But feature basement, nice as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So Ken Johnson was going to head this up, but he's not feeling very awesome. So I decided to make it everyone's responsibility to either ask the questions or answer the questions. And we'll have to bring some candy or something to trick people into answering questions.
Now, this is like gonna be some kind of a generic.
Hey, back. You're back to the calendar?
Well, it depends on how many people bring in computers. Not only one computer. for it.
And also next Wednesday night, a week from tonight, there is the all-user Greek bowling night.
Geek or Greek?
Pardon me?
Geek. I heard Greek.
I did
No.
too.
No, it's the all-user group bowling night. So Perlmongers, Python, I forget who else was involved in the organizing of this. So. But anyway, there is no presentation. Basically, the only technical talk is what you do over a glass of beer or other beverage. And basically, it's just to hang out, eat some hors d'oeuvres, have a drink. If you want, you can actually play a bowl or two. But anyway, it's just a fun night. And if you go, wear something that says Unix or Linux or a penguin or something, so they know you came from this group.
Dress well. No holy clothes either.
I don't know if I have anything that has such a logo. So often the clothes are all large, and extra large.
You can carry a stuffed penguin around with you.
Yes.
Okay.
There are options.
Oh,
Is that it there?
I think that's it.
Any other announcements here? Looks like we have, what is today, the 10th? Doom meters.
Yesterday, Fedora 21 was released. Monday,
Yay.
the new Linux kernel came out,
What do you mean the new Linux kernel?
3.18. Doesn't look very
Who runs stable, really?
Yeah.
Mortals.
Actually, in the last month, there have been a whole bunch of releases.
So yeah, if you do start installing Fedora 21 tonight, by Monday, you might be able to see it, so.
And this is the voice of experience speaking.
Sorry, so bitter.
And there's always Windows.
Are we gonna have a private meeting back there? Okay.
Oh, you weren't taking, you stopped taking a break.
Okay, well, we're gonna stop taking the break because nobody has anything fun to talk about. Unless they do. Windows out of questions. And I'm gonna talk about VPN and IPsec. And I kind of broke them apart on purpose there. And I'm basically just gonna talk about some secure networking. And I did not do the awesome demo I wanted to because this is my first sane day in a week. So I'm feeling better. I probably don't sound like it, but I feel a little bit better. Oh, okay. How many of you guys are familiar with VPNs? You set them up at the work, at office, or at home all the time?
Well, I don't set them up, I use them.
You use them.
Yes, there is a difference.
You're a user.
Yes.
One of
One of
those.
those evil, pain in the butt users.
So we only have one person who uses VPNs, one person who sets them up. I saw a few hand waggles. No proud like salutes or anything.
Is doing it 10 years ago count?
For the purposes of this audience, yes.
Okay.
To get the numbers up?
Huh? Encapsulation is encapsulation.
Okay, then fine, I got a bunch of them.
Okay. So a virtual private network, a VPN extends a private network or networks across public networks. I did segment out the tunnels. We can talk about that a little bit later. It's all kind of the same thing. But in the concept of a VPN, you can extend a network across the internet, or even a frame network or some other type of MPLS or whatever type of network you might have. And you can extend this to another site. And this involves some technology of advertising routes, pushing defaults. How many of you guys are familiar with the route advertisement? I am going to have to lower my talking points here. Okay, so if you had a main office, for example, I don't know, like Graybar, for example, and you had several other offices and you wanted to connect them all so that they were all on a network or would allow them access to a network to access SAP or access some internal mail service or their human resources system or something securely, this is how you would do this cheaply and effectively, because historically what would happen is you would have all of the infrastructure you would need to run your company at your head office. You would have a leased line in between the two sites, and then you would have half or most of the infrastructure duplicated. And these leased lines were expensive. How many of you guys remember leased lines, big honking, like 96 gigabit leased lines?
96 gigabits? How about kilobits?
How about 9600?
No, 96 gigabit leased lines.
No.
Okay.
T1.
I'm sorry?
T1?
No. That would be a DS-192 at that point. Different world. I'm sorry, guys.
Generation X.
I'm sorry?
Generation X.
That was 11 years ago. Okay. So this is a typical internet VPN here. Okay, we're into IPsec, Internet Protocol Security, protocol suite for protecting an IP packet. Internet layer meant to be used with IP. So IPsec, I'm going to talk about this a little bit in depth, but how many of you guys are familiar with IPsec? You're familiar with the term. How many of you guys are familiar with what it looks like going across the wire? You would be surprised then. So IPsec is a mandatory component for IPv6 and therefore the IPsec security model is required to be supported for all IPv6 implementations in the near future. And IPv6, IPsec is implemented using the AH authentication header and the ESP extension header. Since at the present moment, IPv4, IPsec is available in nearly all client and server OS platforms, the IPsec IPv6 advanced security can be deployed by IT administrators immediately without changing applications or networks. The importance of IPsec and IPv6 has grown in recent years as U.S. Department of Defense and federal government have mandates to buy IPv6 capable systems and to transition to IPv6 capable networks within a few years. How many of you guys were aware that IPsec is in every piece of hardware you can buy today? All it is a header in the IP packet. Okay? That's really all it is. Once you go to the encryption and encapsulation, you have to break it apart. But the handshaking, everything occurs within the IP protocol. It is not no fancy server or anything. The kernel just grabs it and does what it does. Probably the only difference between IPsec and other VPN type solutions is that because it works at such a low level, it does use some very fast algorithms at what you might consider to be a lower bit density. So you're talking about 2048 SSL or TLS certs, where 168 bit is about the cap for having an encryption key calculated on the fly on every packet going through the kernel. So you don't really want a huge encryption algorithm running in your kernel. Otherwise, your internet will just kind of go. Whoa. Okay, a tunnel or Tor is a great example of what I'm trying to say here. Technically, all of this is tunneling. Technically, it's kind of a different method of encapsulation. But I'm just trying to say that tunneling, for the purposes of this conversation, is very much like a VPN with no private network sharing, very often used for personal privacy. Or another way of saying a single user VPN. So a lot of people want anonymity, or they want security, or they don't want to be tracked by some organization. Some people are scared of the government. I'm scared of marketing organizations.
Mr. Google.
Huh?
That's scary.
But
You like Google. Google is a marketing organization.
Yes.
By definition, scared of Google.
I'm okay with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm okay with them.
They're the worst ones in a lot.
Oh, they're not. There's some far worse ones. So what this turns out to be is that there's a lot of people using some pretty decent level of encryption technology to browse the internet, which is kind of funny, but it is kind of interesting that this growth, this tunnel, Tor, for example, is pushing the industry ahead to where it should be, and that's a really great thing. So yeah, having all these quote unquote hipsters with their glasses and their Tor nodes to update Facebook is kind of silly, but they're slowly pushing the industry forward a little bit, and I think that's actually a good thing.
Simple question. How does a website know if your traffic came from the core network?
Exit nodes are being categorized and
So
fingerprinted.
basically, that list of exit nodes.
Well, they're being fingerprinted first, so it's not so much that whether you came in or out of an exit node that is known or unknown. It is also how the actual packets come out. Once they exit a Tor node, they all kind of look the same. So it doesn't matter if it's a Tor node at Dave's house or a Tor node at your house. Once they exit, they kind of all look the same, and so they can fingerprint it. Here's Tor traffic.
So you're saying Tor is, you just call Tor a single user VPN?
That's what I'm trying to explain it as, because it doesn't really give the business sense of I need to log on to the corporate network to print this on the check printer. You know, it's not that kind of concept of I need to access things on the network on the far end. It's more of I want to browse the internet quasi or super securely. And actually, Gary, mentioning, could you start a piece of paper around for the attendance? Okay, so secure, trusted, and private. So networks were developed to move data originally. I'm sure you guys remember some of the old 2 computers hooked via SCSI to the exact same hard disk, that type of networking. How many of you guys remember doing that? Good old-fashioned, like 1970s networking.
Yeah, with serial cables.
I
said, yeah, with serial cables. UCP.
Before serial cables. So security was kind of an afterthought. It was more of, it is so hard for us to get this bit of data across the room that was the primary goal. And security was not really a goal. It was like saying, hey, I'm trying to get this bit across the room. Security is like a side thing, okay? So many applications and databases have little to no security even today. So let's just say you go to connect to some enterprise service bus or some corporate system, and they'll have a database it's talking to that has no encryption between it. So you can have your database server out in the data center land going across some network, which you hopefully made private just for private VLAN, just for giggles of it, and then it's coming to your application server, and it's usually not encrypted. And it's not so much that encrypted was the safe way of doing it within your own network, but encryption has a side effect of granting security to the data validity. So when you don't have to really worry about the data being corrupted across the wire so much, because the encryption for an end-to-end VPN or here always about secure as in NSA. Sometimes it's about secure as in making sure you have that warm and fuzzy feeling that your data is correct across the wire. You don't have some deep packet inspection in the middle that is truncating your packets because you're trying to do jumbo frames and it's trying to push it through a 1500 MTU interface. How many of you guys remember like the old FTP, TFTP stuff where you could see what people were transferring over the wire? I mean, that was the thing. Get this file across the internet. There was no concern about security back then. It was, I've got a picture of a cat. I want to get it across the internet. How do I do that? you FTP it. You UUCP it. You TFTP it. Whatever it took to get that picture of that cat across the internet. And then today, you go to FTP, and all of a sudden it's like it's either SFTP or FTPS. So in the Unix world, it is so hard to think of a way of moving a file without thinking of using secure protocols, because it's making the correct path the easy path. And that's how you win business, that's how you win everything, is making the correct thing to do the easy thing to do. So network security, not. So this is kind of this division here between the business world and the research institutions and the governmental agencies, the educational agencies. They're trying to focus so much on security, and they're not focusing on the privacy or anonymity. And this is where our earlier discussion about the tunneling or the Tor is creating this mix and kind of pushing the industry forward by saying, hey, privacy and anonymity are a different problem. And we're going to nudge you right there until, you know, this network security starts to look a little bit better for everybody. Some example uses, so in commercial usage for a VPN, you might use a commercial inside a business for a VPN. You might connect to an IPMI. You might connect to your CCTV system. You might connect to the intranet, which would allow you to access, you know, like your HR system or, you know, some various other systems. What other things would you access over your VPN at your office, at your work? Suggestions, comments. Ed, what do you access over the VPN without using its name? Mainframe, there we go. It's a good use. You had one over here?
We have a separate site.
Mm-hmm.
It just connects them so they're together.
And does anyone else have a use for VPN, Lee? Tunnel?
I use tunnels all over the place.
What would you use one for business, though?
Connect my remote Nagia servers to the central box.
There you go. Anybody else have any business uses for a VPN?
Working remotely.
Working remotely. Do you mean work from home?
Or work from hotel, or work from out of town.
Or don't get out of pajamas?
Sorry, I don't know.
TMI.
Oh,
Another acronym that we didn't think we'd hear tonight.
If you do secure copy between the things you're sending between sites, you're
Mhm.
able to cover it.
Right, yes. And secure copy is, in effect, a pretty one-time use VPN, pretty much. You're just creating an encapsulation tunnel, you're shoving stuff across it, but when you're done, you turn it off. So, yeah, I mean, secure copy, I just wanted to compare the FTP is you can watch the bits fly across and you can figure out what the file
And you
is.
can watch the login fly across if you capture it.
You can get the password if you're fast. I mean, in secure
Now,
copy.
there was some talk I heard about if you're using Tor,
Mhm.
that it kind of makes you stand out so that NSA would pay particular attention to your traffic.
I think that's really what the media want you to think.
That's not true.
I think that anyone that uses a computer stands out more than those who do not. It's a big question of, you know, if you're doing really mischievous stuff, you're still in sneaker net. You have a floppy disk in a freezer box with ice cream and you're shipping it. The freezer box of ice cream defeats the scanning, by the way. So, just in case anyone wanted to know.
Yeah, but then they'll open Then they'll open it.
What do you mean?
No.
No, time sensitive doesn't get scanned like that. Residential, what I have IP cameras, NAS. What other things would you use to set up if you had a VPN at your house? So, Mr. Internet of Things, what would you use a VPN for to access something IP controlled at your house? Something you don't want the internet to turn on and off, like a light switch.
Well, I can't really talk about it right now since we're being broadcast.
Oh, I see. I see. So you have a widget that does something.
I can't even mention who would be concerned, who's going to know, you know.
Okay.
That would give a clue, and they would not clueless.
So internet hunting, huh? Does anyone have something that they have at their house that they would like to access securely remotely, but do not want the world to control?
Well, yeah, like checking if my garage door is open or closed.
The billion-dollar idea of garage door checker.
Originated here.
Oh no, actually, I've heard about 30 people talk to me about it.
Yeah, but how do you secure something like that?
Well, it's easy because what you do is you lean a brick against the garage door, and whenever they raise the garage door and leaves go out, the brick falls down, and they continue to drive on. It comes down. The safety thing hits the brick and bounces back up because it thinks it's a child, and then you can go rob the house. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted it from the other point of view.
That's way too complicated. Rush out the windows.
What?
That's way too complicated. Just break out the windows and go into a window.
But see, you're missing the best part, though. You can park inside, close the garage door, and load your vehicle in the heat.
My house, you can only steal what's in the garage because the door between the garage and the house is locked.
Locks are for honest people.
Yeah. That was a chainsaw.
So the garage door checker. What other great things could you access at your home that you probably can't access at work? I know a lot of people actually will VPN to their home to use their internet access to go through an unfiltered internet to update Facebook.
On one shower.
Hmm?
On their one shower. They're not on the clock.
All day long?
Yeah.
Shame on
Not me.
you. We're suggesting it.
You just do it direct.
What?
You just do it direct.
Well, I mean, hey, if you got the pipe, just set up the proxy.
I'm having I can't think of his name, but the guy who did the presentation here within the last year on the Internet of Things. And if you remember, one of his creations was he had a Pi running a cat feeder. And so he had the cameras lined up, so yes, he could check and make sure that the food got deposited in the dish and the cat was actually eating it.
Or you could have a nanny cam.
A nanny cam.
Or looking back into your computer to see what you're watching. Nobody said anything.
But they're all taking notes.
Yes. So there's a lot of very specific uses that a person would need for commercial, so for their business or for their home, where you might want to access something at your home that is otherwise secured.
Uh-oh.
So some example open source software projects, OpenVPN, everyone's pretty familiar with that. FreeLAN is a very lightweight, very fun project. Soft Ether is like the awesome. How many of you guys are familiar with Soft Ether?
Tell us about it.
There it is. So Soft Ether is like OpenVPN, but like half the size. Has all the love and attention that OpenVPN has, plus a GUI to configure it for those lazy peoples. And look, there's like buttons that are like Stan approved. So yes, soft ether. Let's see here, features. It's got a few of them. It even has an ARM, it even has multiple ARM downloads for the Pis, the BeagleBones, whatever type of system you want here. Hey, look, it even has an Android, an iPad, an iPhone, and Windows Mobile are supported. Hey, supporting Windows Mobile. What a small audience.
That what you call low capacity networking? Is that like low capacity networking?
Oh, I mean, writing an app for 5 people, I mean, that's pretty brave.
Especially a free one.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, soft ether's probably the thing you want to be using for fiddling around, or if you need it for your business, or if you need to impress somebody, because it's got like big icons next to the buttons. Maybe we can click on this and ooh. Look, dynamic DNS settings down here. It's got everything. There's the kitchen sink over here. Ooh. So yeah, soft ether's pretty awesome. FreeLAN. I'll get that. So FreeLAN is a pretty simple, small VPN client that can do peer-to-peer or client-server or mixture of the two. The configuration is really hard. But this kind of does it. This shows how every single VPN works pretty much by default. Listen, use that type of encryption mechanism. Private network is going to have its own network. Use a signer cert that I know about. We have a private and a public. They use the same known CA. Then they have a private and a public, and they can talk to each other. And then they're just using the same network. So this is how difficult, and that's sarcasm, this is how difficult it is to configure a VPN link right there. So this is a text-based configuration from FreeLAN, freelan.org. And looks like it's written pretty well as far as the help and documentation. And they have a pretty good website. OpenVPN, of course, is like the monster. And it supports everything but Windows Phone, apparently. So soft ether if you're using Windows Mobile. IPv6 and IPsec. This is kind of where I stole the text for that. Everybody's using at least a 2.6 kernel, right? Anybody using 2.4 still?
It's not connected to the Ethernet.
Okay.
network, but yeah.
You've got something you're fine with. That's okay. Okay, so back here, soft ether, Tink. How many of you guys are familiar with Tink? Nobody? Okay. Tink is another little project. It's got a pretty loyal following. It works okay. And they're supporting Windows 8 now. I mean, they're keeping in the ball game.
But not Windows Mobile.
Well, there's no mobile here. But they are supporting Solaris, so their Solaris has one user.
So can you sum up a quick compare and contrast out of the four? You're referring to OpenVPN as the big monster, but why would someone choose one over the other besides I need that mobile Windows on soft ether? Sure.
Well, so the benefits, OpenVPN has a architecture which allows it to handle pretty much unlimited number of router advertisements or pushes. So, for example, if you're jumping into an MPLS network setup, which I'm going to guess, how many of you guys work with an MPLS network? How many of you guys know what MPLS is? Frame? Does anyone work with Frame? Okay, so MPLS sits on top of Frame to basically do Ethernet segmentation so that you can have over a wide area network, like an entire country or 5 countries, you can actually have a common Ethernet over all of them. This is MPLS. This is very useful. However, whenever you start securing across it, you can actually have so much encapsulation of so many networks, VLANs. So you start doing VNV VLANs within VLANs, and you have to compress your headers and compress your MTUs so that it all works. OpenVPN can actually handle that so you don't have to deal with MTU compression. So this is where some of the things that OpenVPN can do for you at speed. Keep in mind, one of the problems with VPNs is they're doing a lot of this stuff at speed. So they don't want to be if you have a gigabit link, you have a gigabit link. You don't want to be interfering with this, so you're doing it at speed. So soft ether is meant for small business. It could work for the enterprise. It's pretty good software. It's well written. It's all written in C. Some of these other programs may work very well for enterprise, but their targets are so small, they haven't really hit that scaling cap. Whereas OpenVPN, I can tell you from personal experience, I mean, I've seen 3,000 VLANs being push routed over a single link. So, I mean, it works. It's a different story. If you want, we can look up a comparison later, but there should be a comparison on Wikipedia, and if not, I can add it later. How many of you guys remember Hamachi? Good feelings, bad feelings about it? So Hamachi was, I'm sorry?
Somebody bought them out.
The project still exists, but it's still closed source. Hamachi was a kind of a closed source, but open.
Free as in beer.
Free as in expensive beer. That it would create a VPN for you and another user pretty much anywhere in the world to connect to each other. But you had to not ask any questions about how Hamachi was handling your data. It was encrypted, but you don't know what was happening when it was decrypted at their server. So it was really great software. It worked every time. People loved it. Got through corporate filters like you wouldn't believe. So, boom, boom, boom. Am I going too fast? I'm going too fast.
This all seemed to centralize at a large building in Shanghai, China.
No, actually, I believe it was like the Netherlands or something. You know, like a nefarious Bond villain home. Oh, I put some asterisks here. So, for example, you might have tools like Zintial, Untangle, and some others. Wendell, can you think of any of these other management tools that have the OpenVPN as an option? You said what? PFSense or whatever? That might have it. So OpenVPN is actually used as a component in a large number of tools. Sometimes you don't really see it. You just kind of get this thing.
Yeah, they said like in the Mac Funnelblick is OpenVPN.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't know it unless you went and looked it up. You know it's a VPN, but you don't realize it's OpenVPN.
Mm-hmm.
Which was it?
Funnelblick.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that OpenVPN did that kind of set it as the de facto, they created a very standard format for distributing your bundles. So your bundle is like a little XML file or a little configuration file, and then your SSL key. So if you're doing self-sign, you know, there it is. Or if you're doing public key with OpenVPN, you're giving it the public key to use, and then it will validate through your publicly viewable and publicly followable chain. So you're giving it the chain to follow to get to your cert. And that little bundle has such a uniform type that you can even go to a modern Mac and it, I believe, I'm not sure, but some of these new Macs will actually accept that as a VPN connection and won't even ask you to install anything because it's already there. You know, I know that all of my systems, I don't even have to think about it. I just double click on the bundle and the VPN starts. So the bundle's just kind of this universal thing that one of the things that OpenVPN did is they kind of defined the way to transport the configuration across. So they have a really great page here. They have a really great page on their website here about related projects that include or use OpenVPN. So here's like the client GUI stuff. And they've got a bunch of them. They've got management UIs. So there's PFSense, there's Zintial. Untangle's missing apparently. IPCOP, ClearOS. Some authentication systems. So you can actually have, you know, for example, you can have certs and user keys stored in LDAP, which is a really great feature for a corporate directory. I helped with that one. So yeah, there's a lot of programs out for management of OpenVPN as a server, and there's a lot of clients, as you can see. It looks like they have clients for everything except for Windows Mobile. So for any VPN, there's 4 basic methods with which how it will happen. There'll be a point-to-point tunneling protocol. You guys might remember this as the old Microsoft PPTP. the protocol, the actual concept predated Microsoft, but they kind of really gave it a black eye. Layer 2 tunneling protocol, which is what you're going to find most everything's using right now, other than and then IPsec, of course, which has such a low impact on the networking that it's coming in very, very high demand. And then SOCs. So if you're doing like an SSH tunnel or something like that, you might set up a SOCs VPN. And at that point, you can connect your computer to some port on some server and then have it redirected through, La La Land out to Taiwan so that you can watch the little cat that does this all day long.
What do you call those things?
Hmm?
What do you call those things?
Entertaining.
No, Amador, you're.
And flies. Let's see here. So yeah, everything falls into these 4 categories in some way, shape, or form. Tor does kind of stretch some of these technologies. Some of the tunneling you're going to see is going to be creating SOCs in user land. And so a lot of this stuff really stretches the rules, but they all do fall into these 4 little houses, so to speak. Okay, so encapsulation data is encapsulated over the wire. This makes it good for use over the internet. Cancel that contract for the leased lines, lower costs as VPN encapsulation works over many services. So back in the good old days, you had your leased lines, you had your dial-up, you had your T1s, and you kind of had to sit down there like a bean counter and figure out what could fit over what. How much, can I get out of this dial-up line? And today, as the security and the encapsulation keeps everything secure and in its own little pipe, you don't even need to really worry about it. So you could start ordering one massive piece of pipe and just throw everything over it. And so it makes the job a lot easier. You can sit there as Mr. IT boss and say, just buy the bigger one, and then just not even care about it anymore. So we went from 28K to massive bandwidth in such a short amount of time because it was just easier for us. So whenever it comes to the corporation, I can remember the days when corporations would have 300 or 400 lines strictly for employees to dial in for no other purpose. How many of you guys remember dial in to your office to get work done? How many of you guys remember how much room was made once all that equipment was gotten rid of?
Oh, yeah.
It was on the other end, so you only had one going out to the house.
Oh.
How many people in this group remember when they used to dial into the slug modem bank in order to get in?
Well, it is. The server's still pretty slow. I mean, it kind of feels like it. So VPNs are complex, okay? So one of the cons is that you usually need a better nerd for VPN. So you could be, as a company, rolling along, doing your own networking. You got Dave here. He's doing every piece of IT for the entire business.
Small business.
And that, and this and that. And so it kind of means you need a better nerd or you need a second nerd. And it raises the cost and the risk. But the pro is that your employees can actually go mobile. And one of the things is that you can fix the security versus shadow IT problem. So in your business, your employees are going to do shadow IT. They're going to try to find a way to get the thing they need easily. And I've been dealing with this a lot. But if you make the security really easy to use, then they don't even think about it. So it's the best way to fix stupid is to make it easier to use. So here's an example of a pushed network. Can you guys read that? Does everybody understand that? Starting over here. What do you think this means?
I don't know, it's too small for me, right?
Push routes to the client to allow it to reach other private subnets behind the server. Remember that these private subnets will also need to know to route to the OpenVPN client address pool back to the OpenVPN server. So what's going on here? You're at your head office here, and let's just say you have 1,000 VLANs at your head office, okay? And Mr. or Mrs. Employee needs access 3 of them to do their job. So whenever they log on as the remote user, you need to push to them 3 routes to tell them that these networks exist and how to get to them. So once they are on the VPN, they're sitting there, they're like, okay, whoop-de-doo, the VPN's over here. And they're like, well, I need to go get the SAP server. So they go and they type in SAP, blah, 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 and the DNS resolves it to this IP address, which is an internal address, and they go to this address, and without the pushed route, they wouldn't know that that extra VLAN existed. Because VPNs can be very, very difficult to manage because you can divide it to have what's called a default route, where you push every bit of traffic across the wire back to your main base and then out over your internet connection or into your business. And that's expensive. Or you can do what's called divided routing, where you allow the user to access the entire internet and then only the internal secure stuff via these pushed routes. So it's a double-edged sword. You either let them watch YouTube through the VPN and slow it down for everybody, or you let them watch YouTube from their own internet connection and then advertise the routes for the services inside the business.
Is that part of the OpenVPN server that's doing that pushing? It almost seems like that'd be a variation of DHCP. You said it's pushing those routes.
Correct. Okay, keep in mind.
What is pushing those routes?
Okay, keep in mind that it can be done in 2 ways on OpenVPN. It can be done by the server DHCP setup, which is not true DHCP, by the way. Okay, because you have an encapsulated tunnel and you're sending control commands back and forth. So it's quasi DHCP inside there. Or you can actually give, during the client bundle, the XML file can actually have the configuration for those push routes in that bundle. The point is that that end user needs to know about those networks and able to access them. And also those networks need to know how to get back to the VPN server to get back out to the users. So with security comes a little bit of routing fun. So it's a lot of businesses, most businesses will do the default route where the user connects to the VPN and then all traffic will go through the company. That's the lazy way out, easy way out. And most people just do it because they think it's the right way to do it.
It also means you get to filter it all.
It means you get to filter it all, but it also means that
You gotta backhaul it, yeah.
you have to backhaul it for the VPN, you have to backhaul it for the out access, and you open up some other potential problems that are kind of hard to see. But you could get somebody with a infected machine that you really didn't understand, and so they'll be chewing up the bandwidth even more. So it's kind of a mixed blessing, mixed chore. Kind of have to figure out what you want to manage, what you don't, what the purpose of the VPN is for your client. If the purpose of your VPN is to connect to one service, why not advertise that one service and just make it routable? And then that way they can work to their heart's delight, and it's there, and you don't have to you don't even have to mess with anything else. Site-to-site VPNs, it's pretty self-explanatory. Connect two physically remote sites together to reduce infrastructure, fewer servers, move data once, backups. So let's go back to that picture. So back in the old leased line times, you'd have this leased line, and it would be so expensive that you'd have all of your infrastructure, some of your infrastructure repeated, some of your infrastructure repeated, some of it repeated maybe at another one. And whenever the person would want to get any work done at this site, they may be connecting to a local mail server. They may be connecting to a lot of local infrastructure, and that local infrastructure was just syncing over this leased line. But with a high-speed internet and with the large pipelines, and then you toss in a secure connection of VPN, you could suddenly keep all of your mail servers here and get rid of a whole bunch of hardware. So you reduce your costs because you don't have maybe don't need a nerd on site at that regional office. Maybe you don't even need a server room because you just get rid of all the servers. Maybe you just need a router, a switch, and a bunch of desktop computers. And that's big cost savings in some industry.
Yeah, and a lot of little routers now actually are good at doing VPNs anyway.
Mm-hmm. And it's a situation where you can have this site that would have $60,000 to $90,000 worth of computer hardware just to mimic part of your infrastructure, and then suddenly say, "Oh, we don't need to use that anymore." And then watch your bosses run around saying, "We got to use the budget somewhere."
Golf course. You use your budget on a golf course.
No,
You do it around where I'm at.
no, but physical expenses like that, they have to be shuffled a lot. Okay, and also a VPN is a platform to build from. New projects and services can be secure by default. So you're creating some new app, or you bring in some app to your company. Maybe it has security, and maybe it doesn't. But if you have a very nice VPN set up, then you don't even need to really worry so much about it as in the rollout. So you've got some new web-facing HR system, and it's supposed to be secure. But you figure, hey, why not just have it on the intranet facing internal only, and then allow all the VPN users to access it? Then I don't have to worry about putting an HR system on a public facing address. I don't have to worry about putting an HR system facing to the internet, just so people can go check how many days off they have. I can just face this internally and allow them to use the VPN to access it. Access to resources can be managed. So a user can have access to particular networks or particular systems so that you can actually give people control. So, maybe Dave needs to access certain things, and that's great. But then he has somebody else, and they only need to put in CRM tickets. And that way he can give them very limited access to that. And if that VPN or computer or whatever is ever, taken over, or if it gets a virus, then it doesn't impact the rest of the system. You can scale your remote resources with the internet. So historically, you had to either have enough dial-up modems to have everybody dial in, you had to have the lease lines or whatever. Now that you're working over the internet, you can switch to a different POP. You can have your, the next item is you can have your VPN server in a different data center. You don't have to have it at your HQ, your headquarters. So that allows you to scale things. So you can actually have your users that connect to SAP, for example, all be in a VPN server that's in the exact same data center, whereas the rest of your users that are hitting a sales system that's different or separate, they might be going into a different area. So this is some of the things that you can do with a VPN, which are very difficult to do without. I think. So I'm going to throw some of this on the mailing list a little bit later. This is probably one of the funnest. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's a URL.
Yeah.
Internet and LAN over VPN using OpenVPN Linux server, Windows, Linux clients works for gaming and through firewalls. They put the entire story in the URL. If you guys,
What's the cause for this?
r79org/IPsec.
huh? Oh, IPsec.
No,
Okay.
on your.
Yeah. So this is the IPsec page here, and this is the How-To Forge. How-To Forge is ran by a couple friends of mine. It's really great. Some of these articles are 12 years old or so.
Yeah, but still a lot of them are good and worthwhile.
Right. Other than the advertisements, I mean, it's pretty much just copy, paste, and go. And usually there are comments below, so if there's any typos or anything, people catch them pretty fast. Let's see. This one is, it looks like this is a few years old. The IPsec page, just wanted to show you guys how. So for example, to configure IPsec for a Linux server, what you really need to do is the exact same with the other VPNs we're looking at. You really need to tell it the encryption mechanisms, your pre-shared keys, and what to accept and what not to accept, because at the speed, so like let's just imagine that you have a 10 gig network card. The speed of encrypting and decrypting all of that data is going to take a CPU hit. So you are either going to bulk up on CPU to handle that, or you're going to lower your encryption. And if you're rocking a 10 gigabit per second internet connection, you're kind of in a situation where a lot of people aren't going to want to connect to you, period, if you're running a very heavy encryption mechanism in your kernel. Sure, you may have all the horsepower in the world to handle it, but you also have to think about the other end. So sometimes you actually have to plan for multiple algorithms. But it is really just that simple. Set up a key, rock and roll. And pretty much every single thing, I don't know about XP, but pretty much every system that you can get a hold of today will have IPsec capable. It's got tons of options that you can jump in and set up so that you can make things a little bit more resilient, so they aren't trying to handshake all the time. But other than that, secret URL. And that's all I've got.
Cream on hot water.
World famous.
Does that mean evil dude?
Evil foreigner.
Evil dude.
Questions, comments, or other? Ask me a VPN question, Wendell. Okay. If you guys follow any of that, how many of you guys are interested in VPNs, period? Yay, more hands than on any other question tonight.
In all of its flavors.
Yeah,
Andrew, that one. Of the encryption algorithms, do you have any feeling for which are the heavyweight and which are the lightweight ones?
what you would probably want to do is if you look on the Linux kernel mailing list about 10 years ago, there was a massive discussion on this. Okay? And it's a fun topic, but when you really boil down to it, look at your systems, and the first option is going to be the most efficient. They're all going to be secure because they're tossing things back and forth very, 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 very fast. And somebody would need to have an order of magnitude more processing capability to look at one packet. And if you're tossing trillions of packets back and forth every day, and they need to assemble those packets to even make a sensible piece of data, you can really mitigate it. You don't need to go super high-end encryption. A tiny bit of encryption very fast can make people's days difficult.
As long as you stay away from the nodes that NSA has access to unencrypted.
Well, so for Tor is very specific, but what I'm saying is that if you have a site-to-site VPN, you control both ends yourself. Somebody in the middle trying to look at your traffic, if it is at the entry level or entry level plus one step, and you are encrypting all of that traffic, and you're tossing it back and forth so fast, you basically create the situation where it has to be the NSA that only cares about you. They dedicate all their processing to you before it even becomes a risk. And at that point, you're going to start seeing latency and other issues where you should probably just basically say, wait a second, why is this connection suddenly so slow on September the 3rd? And start looking at different problems. So, did that help you out there? But yeah, the Linux kernel mailing list, go back to where the technology kind of started. It'll be 12 years, 10, 12 years ago. There'll be a discussion, and I mean a discussion, very lively, about the merits or the caveats of the encryption algorithms.
In other communities, they like blowfish for being efficient, for what it's worth.
No, and this is the fun topic though, is that blowfish will be more efficient for a larger MTU. But will it be more efficient for a smaller MTU? And this is where these massive discussions will, somebody will be, rocking an 8192 MTU on their entire infrastructure. And they'll want to use blowfish, and that's cool. And it will be the quickest for them, but it won't be the best overall decision. And whenever you get to an edge point where you need to go over a totally unknown internet, and you're dropping your MTUs down to 1462 or something really small, then you actually have to worry about that type of stuff. Yeah, there's no perfect encryption algorithm for this because there's so many variables going on.
Might also mention, since I use tunnels a lot, I do get in a lot of situations where the tunnel doesn't do what I want to do, like X forward or something like that. And that's where you would want a VPN, because you can forward more than one port at a time.
Okay, yeah, perfect point. A lot of the consumer privacy or anonymity solutions are single user, single port getting to the internet. And a lot of these systems are not really, they don't have this concept that Gary wants a connection where he can have 2,500 ports open at any given time. A lot of people don't realize how much you can kind of cram through that connection at one time. So that's the same thing with V&V. So you can actually run VLANs inside of VLANs across an Ethernet connection, which is really great for segmentation. But most software just kind of hangs its hat up and says, "I'm done. I can't handle this."
I can say that's where SSH minus X comes in handy. Because you can, you run an X application across SSH.
Yeah, and at that point, that's a SOX. So, yeah.
If you're doing browsing by VPN, there are some websites that use this to talk to you.
Well, usually
They don't like the proxy.
Well, right, but let's just say that you had, so what Hulu used to do is they would actually run a piece of JavaScript in the browser to check the local IP address that the person is coming from. So like, let's just pretend you have everything that's supposed to go to Hulu VPN'd through some area, because Hulu would let you watch full videos if you were outside the country or something. This was hilarious.
Yeah, well, and I still do that because I go through Canada. So a lot of things I can get through the proxy I can't get.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube doesn't know.
Well, YouTube does know, because if I am using through a Chilean network, and even if I have all of my user agent stuff set to English, I still get all of my localization stuff set to Chile. So even the little menu buttons,
Now, when I browse, I get most of the ads from Canada
Mhm.
and not locally.
Right.
Because they're seeing that, which is sort of weird.
Yeah, it's funny. About Naboot.
Why are you seeing ads?
Sometimes you have to leave them on.
Well, Canada has a better medication,
It's called no script and ad block.
Well, I use AdBlock Plus, but
But see, he wants to be able to check on Stan's form.
There you go.
Well, it does come up once I enable that JavaScript.
But yeah, to get back to that, to use a VPN or a tunnel to look at content and then they suddenly start blocking it, there's like 6 or 7 different ways that they're doing this. There's like 2 or 3 JavaScript exploits where they can look at your local address. They can look at a whole bunch of local stuff and try to figure out if you are over the VPN or not.
When they look at the local address, though, you're behind a router anyway, so that's already negative. How would they know that you're not where you say you are? In other words, like it comes back 192.168.
Right.
Something.
That's not the address I was meaning to talk about.
Okay.
There's a local JavaScript and it can run an ICMP, a ping,
Okay.
to figure out what your address is publicly.
Okay, back on the router end.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's pretty awkward stuff. The fingerprinting comes in. If everybody's using the exact same proxy or exact same VPN software, they can look for that fingerprint to see, oh, this person's coming from another proxy. It's the exact same fingerprint as Proxies R Us. I don't know if Proxies R Us is a site, but I'm sure it is now. But yeah, as far as tricking, like digital rights management, stuff like that, yeah, you're better off with a full-blown VPN, because then your presence is there. You can set your default route to be across the VPN, so nothing can be seen locally. And at that point, then you're going to see the content. But it's very dangerous because you don't know what the end VPN company is doing with all your data. Because technically they can see the stuff
Right.
at a point where they could trick you into thinking, oh, where's his default route? We can start doing really fun things. Any more questions, comments?
While people are thinking of more questions, a comment. Thank you to Gray Bar for hosting us and Valerie for.
Get yourself some vitamins C to help keep you healthy. You don't have to be sick to take a sick day. In fact, they're more fun if you're not.
Can we quote you?
No, you cannot. I will deny it.
This is live on YouTube.
That's what the idea is, playing personal illness stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see here. Anything we want to talk about there? No? Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
What was that number on NSA ending number 1 or something?
All right, we'll come next week or next month, but come again.
Yes.
Thank y'all for coming.
Tomorrow night's a DevOps meeting. And
Well, there's about 3 others.
then next week is like bam, 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 bam.
Hey, Andrew?
Yes, sir.
What's the best way would you do to do bonding nowadays?
I'm sorry?
What's the way that bonding is done inexpensively? What's the best way to do bonding nowadays? Yeah, for you take multiple.
Bonding?
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, I have an accent.
I was going to read about mine, I can get it sometime.
How would you just, separate mix?
I mean, it feels better.